first, I would like to speak about the Kuradashi book, and this is this. It's this book here, and it took me about 12 years to finish this book. But this is not probably what you think about. This is like a sketchbook thing, and the pieces that are in this book took me 12 years to finish and collect into one volume. But let me first tell you about myself a bit. I first came to Japan in 2010, and I studied painting and drawing and animations and comics at the Japanese university. And then when I graduated from this university, I worked as a background artist for the animation Your Name, for example, so in the studio of Makoto Shinkai. And then I published two books of my own works after quitting this studio to do my own work. I published Tokyo Storefronts and Tokyo at Night. These are two like big albums of watercolor illustrations that are my main work. But today I would like to talk about this way of working and way of treating my own work that I always had been doing, and that actually was the result of this was my newest book. So the Kuradashi. And by the way, the Kuradashi, the title of this book means to open and see what you can find in your kind of storage. Kura is this type of Japanese storage house, storehouse, like this kind of building where you kind of put your most valuable things. And when there is a fire, which happened a lot in Japanese cities because they were like wooden and so on, the things that were in this kind of sturdy building will survive. And then sometimes you do the okuradashi, which is like opening the storehouse and showing your best things to your clients. So this is what I called my books. So I just opened my storage and made a new book. So this is what I have been always doing with my art. I have been creating, but then I did not stop there. I would also edit, then gather and back up things, and then always think about the products. So how can I use the thing that I'm making? So first, of course, I create. I do art. So the most what I did when I came to Japan was animation art. So you probably have seen websites like this where they show you like, oh, this is the real life place and this is the anime background, and look, they're like identical. And yes, I actually painted this one. It's from the Your Name animation, and it's based on a real location because that's how that studio operated. They used a lot of real locations for the backgrounds in their animations, in their art. So I would do also some of these backgrounds that are based on real locations in Tokyo, for example. So like these ones here. And I would also do this in my own art. So I would go and look for interesting places to sketch and to draw and to put into my own art. I would take photos, or I would paint and draw on location when I had like the occasion. So I would just sit somewhere, for example, that I found like an interesting place and just put it down into my sketchbook with some simple tools. I would have a chair so I can just spend some time in a nice place. And I would get a lot of sketches like these ones here. And for example, this one is made with pen and so fountain pen, technical pens and watercolors. So when I'm painting outside, I use tools that are kind of sturdy and I can use them without being afraid that I'll break them and so on. I have a nice sketchbook and I'll paint these things like this. And I say sketches, but these pieces sometimes to take me like a few hours to finish, or like 2 days even. Sometimes I go home and go back to the same place to finish a painting. So this is also one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Like people a lot talk about their work a lot in this kind of self-depreciating way. In like, oh look, this is just a sketch I did, like on just to post it on Instagram or whatever. But I really think that we should actually say how many hours or how much effort it took to make these pieces, and to value them as are just good art. So even if I go to sketch like this, just with my sketchbook and with my tools, I try to make sketches that are kind of finished pieces that I can then later use for other purposes. So I paint things like this, for example. So these are all places like around Tokyo that I found and sketched on location, or just made a photo and painted at my desk. And these pieces are just kind of random. I found a place that I liked, and I wanted to sketch it, to draw it, because I found it interesting. Or, for example, like this one here, the Japanese maker of paints, Kuradashi, contacted me, and they wanted me to paint something with their watercolors. So I just choose a photo that I took in Japanese garden that was close to our house, and painted this one, for example. This is just a place that I saw on a walk, and so on. So I would always look for a place that is interesting. I would always look for things to paint, and I would try to make as good as a sketch or a painting or a drawing as I can, and then always be aware that I can use it somewhere. So, for example, this is a temple that was really close to our house. There was a hotel, and it had a Japanese garden. So we would go there just for a walk and so on. I took some photos and then painted this one back at our house at my table. So a lot or this, for example, is just a scene from a restaurant that we used to go a lot. I really liked how the buildings looked like at the sundown, and decided to just took some photos and decided to paint this with poster color paint and crayons, which is this kind of style similar to the Studio Ghibli Ponyo movie. I wanted to try it. So a lot of these pictures are just really, really random things from random locations that I went and I found interesting. And I thought, okay, I'll just paint this sketch that no one paid me to do it. And these are just things that I did for myself to learn and to kind of evolve as an artist. And the second kind of way of thinking is the thing that I have been doing more recently is, yes, find some interesting places, some interesting starting material, but then kind of think a bit about what I can do to make this a more interesting image. So, for example, this here is a place in Shibuya. This is actually the Shibuya River in Tokyo. This river is not really beautiful because it most of the time runs underground. And this is the only place where it surfaces. And it's kind of a smelly canal kind of thing and not very nice. And the buildings around it are also not very nice. And the place is they tried to do something there to make it more pleasing, but still it doesn't work so well. And I was actually asked to paint something in Shibuya for a program for a Japanese television. So I thought, okay, instead of doing what I always do, so just painting things as I see them, I can make it a bit more interesting. So I kind of sat down and imagined how the Shibuya River, the place, would look if it was better. So I made the river more pleasant, with more water, with some stones that you can hop on or sit on, with some stairs. You can go and like put your feet into the water. There's a nice Japanese style stone bridge, and some more traditional buildings on the left, a bit more greenery. The whole place is a bit more just pleasant, and a place that you would actually like to go to and spend time at. So I thought, okay, I can actually take stuff from reality as I did before, as I was taught in the animation studio when I was doing the backgrounds, but not paint them directly, not sketch them directly, but kind of pause a bit and stop a bit and think what I would like to see in Japan, for example, what I would like to see as a place, and not work like directly from the source, but just put one kind of step of thinking in between. So that's how this picture, for example, was born. And the third thing that I started to do also recently when I work on my own things, and this is probably kind of the ultimate thing, is just making stuff up. And here I was really, really inspired by Hayao Miyazaki, who is the director in the animation studio, Studio Ghibli. What I saw him doing was making sketches and making up places and making up buildings and so on, just by sitting at his desk and not looking at anything in particular. So he would just sit down with a piece of paper, some paints, and so on. And he would paint things like this as a concept art for his movie, for his next movie. And I thought, okay, he is using his knowledge that he already has because he knows Japanese buildings, he knows how they look like, how, for example, a hot spring building or a hotel or something would look like. And he makes stuff up from scratch. So he doesn't even use like a base. He makes stuff up completely, and still it looks kind of realistic and concrete, and as it could be real. And of course, he is inspired in some real things. Like here are some photos of hot spring buildings, like hotels, that all of them claim that they were the base of the movie, like the movie that plays that the building that he did for the movie. But I guess he used just a lot of different places and mixed them and made his own things. So I thought, okay, can I just like sit down and try to sketch and paint and do images that are based on my experience in Japan. I have been living here for 12 years already, like 13 years already. So I already have some images in my head, some knowledge in my head that I can use to make images from scratch. So make places that don't exist at all, and start making sketches that are just made up completely. So, for example, the cover for the book for the Okuradashi was made like this. So I would start with a sketch like the one that you see on the screen right now. So this is just like a thumbnail. And what I was thinking here was like, okay, for example, I can make a scene where all kinds of weird pictures are laid like on tatami mat, and there's like a pot for tea and a cushion. So someone is working on a book kind of scene. But then I thought, okay, this book is called Okuradashi, so I can paint Akura, so like a Japanese storehouse. So I started with the Japanese storehouse image, like a building. Then I tried to make it kind of more real and try to kind of find a nice perspective and trying to find a nice way to show it, maybe with a garden or some trees in the front. And I had like this idea of the Kura on a hill. So I started to paint a Kura on a hill with some wind maybe blowing from the left side or the right side. I started to add colors. I started to add some details. And in the end, I got this picture, which is the final cover for the book. So this is one of the pictures that I did that are not based on any place in Japan in particular. So it's one of the most difficult kind of walls to break for me. I always tend to run from this creative problem and just use some references. It's very difficult to make something up from scratch, but here I really tried to kind of beat this fear and start doing images that are completely from imagination. And I also started to do it, and once I started to do it more, I was able to kind of get rid of this fear of creativity, so to speak, and do more images of places that just don't exist, are not real, and um, just make things up completely. So, for example, here, this is like a room that I painted. I wanted to try to make an illustration of a room that is in the Japanese traditional style, but at the same time has some modern things in it, and looks like it is lived in right now. So I put like a record player and some speakers and so on, but I tried to make this atmosphere of a traditional Japanese house that is used by just us at like in the modern times. So yeah, these are just things that uh, let me back. These are just things that I made up. Um, okay, so this is kind of the first part that I wanted to talk about. This is kind of where all the pictures that I used in the book came from. It's just 12 years or more of this kind of root of me being painting from reality. So just going somewhere, finding some interesting places, taking photos, painting on location, and so on. And then kind of deciding, okay, I don't have to actually be tied up with reality. I can change stuff and make stuff up and make stuff better. And then realizing, wait, I don't have to start from a real place at all. I can just go at my own pace, start with an idea, start with a feeling, start with just atmosphere and so on, and then build on the knowledge that I already gathered in the 12 years of painting and drawing of Japan. I already have the knowledge, and I think I have the knowledge that is necessary. I can always go to my folder and look for some references, but I already have the knowledge to make stuff up, to try to convey my feelings and stuff like that with the image. So I already had a lot of pictures, and one of the things that I always do and that helped me a lot with this project is the second point that I had, which is to edit, to always edit. What I would do with the sketchbook, even pictures that didn't have any purpose, I just painted something that I wanted to try, a new watercolor set or whatever. I would always scan the pictures in 600 dpi on a good scanner. Sometimes the picture is too big for the scanner because I have only an A4 scanner, so I would scan it in two parts, and then I would spend time and effort in Photoshop to edit all the pictures. Sometimes it would take me like a few hours to edit a picture if it's bigger, so to make it presentable, to erase the paper texture around the picture, to make the line blacker and better, to correct the colors, to erase anything that like small trash and so on that fell on the picture. So you can sometimes find like hair and stuff because I'm painting with watercolors. So I erase all of these things. I sometimes correct few things that like errors that I did, like I smudged the paint with my hand or ink. I would spend time to correct all these things. So, for example, a sketch like this just in my sketchbook, which is, for example, this really huge kind of book, actually. It's really big. And it's really hard to just open it so it lays flat. So when you scan it, it's always like problematic to scan it. So then I have to spend a lot of time to kind of erase this shadow here and to make things more presentable. And I sometimes have like random like paint here and some splotches or things. I test colors. Um, I was caught in a rainstorm with this picture, for example. So I always try to edit these things so they look better. So from a scan like this, I end up with a picture like this. So again, um, I correct the colors and make it more sharp and erase some things and erase the shadow and make the background nice and even and so on.
I guess it's a huge.
So I always
No,
okay. So I always okay. If okay.
no, I was just saying. I guess it's a huge challenge to transform something which is traditional in something which is digital and still have the feeling that it's traditional.
Yeah. So you have to stop in the right place. You have to decide where do you leave the texture of the paper and where you erase it. Sometimes when you try to erase the texture of the paper on the edges, it's you also kind of erase it in the middle of the picture, so it kind of loses its character. And I have to do a lot of decisions to turn something like this into like a scan like this, which is really not good, and then spend hours and hours to kind of edit it into something that can be used for something. And I do it for almost all of these kind of finished pictures that I do. I always did, and I spend a lot of time to make them look presentable. And I kind of always did it. So I always had this mentality to draw and paint, but then not only like make a photo and post it on Instagram, but when I came back home, I would always scan the picture in case, for example, my sketchbook gets lost on the next trip or something. I always scan the picture. I always edit it. I always scan it in big resolution also. And then what I would do, the third step is this. So gather and backup. So I would always gather the files in the native resolution in PSD format, leaving all the layers inside. So I never touch like the base scan. I always work on layers so the base scan is in the files. And I would also back up it on an external hard disk, that the one that you can actually see here. I have like a server here that has my Time Machine backup. And I always also back up it to Google Drive. I have like a paid version that is kind of huge, and I always upload stuff there also. And I heard from someone, I don't remember which artist it was, that you always have to take care of your art, and maybe there will be, I hope not, but if there will be a fire at your house and everything burns down, you still have all your art scanned in high resolution on a server somewhere in US or whatever, on a Google Drive. And I always do this for all my bigger projects and all my like this kind of private work. So when my publisher a few years ago, actually 2 years ago, I think, was like, "Are you planning a new book?" I was like, yes, I'm actually making a new book with my Tokyo storefronts, the second part. I'm making a book that's called right now, I don't know, New Storefronts, because I don't have a title yet. But it will take me probably a year and a half to finish it yet. And our first child is due to be born, so probably it will take me 3 years to finish it, not a year and a half. And he said, do you have anything else that you can give us to publish? And I was like, yes, I have 12 years of files that are just here on my hard drive. And let's do something with it. And so this is how the book was born. And we started to think about what to do with this just huge pile of files that I had. And I have something I really, really like, things that I call sketchbook books. So I like to see and to gather sketchbook books, so books of sketches and paintings of various artists. So, for example, this is a book by Sterling Clinton Hadley, an artist that does these kind of time-dilated sketches where he paints people, mostly his family, like in time. So these pictures end up like weirdly distorted. I love this book a lot. There's like the sketchbook of Cyril Pedrosa, who made the comic Portugal, and he actually went to Portugal to look for material, and he did sketches in his sketchbook, and he later published this as a limited edition kind of sketchbook book of his works while he was in Portugal, which is a great thing. I really love this one. There are the sketchbooks of Jared Muraut. It's hard to see his name here. And he does these kind of crazy pictures in felt tip pen, which are just brilliant. And there are many, many more books like this that I really like. For example, Matthias Adolfsson with his like really fantastic pictures from his Moleskine sketchbook made into like this book. And of course, like this weird book, which is by Hayao Miyazaki, actually, which is from his Porco Rosso kind of period when he did like these kind of pen and watercolor sketches. And I fell in love in these books because I think they are an example of what actually is happening kind of behind the scenes, what artists do maybe in their free time when they're on vacation somewhere or something, or just gathering materials for the next book. So the official kind of thing is the comic, but the kind of sketches end up in a place like this. And you can actually see like the extras on a DVD or something for a movie that you really, really love. And you can see how it was made and the decisions, and you can buy albums of illustrations and pictures that were not maybe used in an animation or a movie or a game, but you can see all the designs, the character designs, the ones that were not used, for example, and so on and so on. So I, as an artist, love these kind of books, and I have kind of amassed a lot of these. For example, this is the newest one that is in my collection. This just came out. And it is the Nicolas de Crécy new book of his sketches from like all kinds of trips around the world, and also stuff that he did in Japan, which are just brilliant pictures, and I like this book a lot also. So I just went, I want one like this too. Just let's do a book that gathers these works that I did for the last 12 years into a coherent book, into a coherent format, and we can start from there, from this idea. So this actually is tied to the last point that I had. It's to have a product. So I always had in mind this thing that when I painted something, I tried to make it look nice and tried to make it look finished and tried to make it, not always, but when I felt that, okay, this kind of looks like something, it kind of looks like it can be used somewhere, I always tried to push the last few things, the last few details, the last few strokes, and then edit it, the file, and save the file, always having in mind that it can be someone used in a product somewhere. So then when we started, okay, let's do the sketchbook book, I had the files that were ready to be into a product. So we actually started from just analyzing all the books that I amassed and seeing what to do with the pictures. First, I wanted to do something like this because I really liked how the pictures of Hayao Miyazaki are featured in a book with poems by Kato Tokiko. So you have like this dual kind of book with poetry and pictures. So we tried to look for a poet, modern or traditional Japanese poet, that would fit with all the art that I gathered. So it took like half a year to try to find someone, but we failed actually. In the end, we couldn't find anything that kind of worked with all the pictures that I had. So we had to kind of get rid of this idea. So the next thing was to have something like this. So a beautiful kind of book that actually looks like a sketchbook, and all the pages are just filled with art. And sometimes you have pieces of text that the person just wrote while they were sketching the scene. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. And we tried it again with all the pictures that I had, but they don't have any text, and trying to kind of convert them into a sketchbook failed again. So we tried it, we did a design, and we couldn't kind of figure it out. So in the end, I was like, okay, let's try something like this. So let's try to just feature the paintings, like really nice, just paintings, for make them as big as they can be, feature them so they're easy to see, and like take all the pages. And then sometimes let's just, I will write a text that is explaining about these, or I will have some of my memories about how they were made and so on. So we tried to make this design, and it actually worked. So in the end, the book features my illustrations with bits of text here and there, and bits of longer text also from time to time. But mostly this is more like an album, like an art album, than a sketchbook actually. So we decided to make it into this form rather than try to force it into looking like an actual sketchbook. So I really want to make a book like this sometime in the future that actually looks like a Moleskine sketchbook or whatever. But that's another project probably. So we decided to do this. We also decided to make it dual language. So we decided to put English and Japanese. And this time, for the first time, the English is on top, because this is the language that I can actually speak in and write in better. And this is translated by my wife to Japanese. So we actually made it English first and then Japanese, which is rare for a book published in Japan, I'm told. Mostly you will have like Japanese text and then English, like in a smaller font or whatever, or just no English at all. But I always try to put English in my books so they can be read by almost all my fans. So I sat down, I chose the pictures, I wrote the text for it, and then we had to actually figure out how to convert all the pictures and all the text into a book. One of the things that I really like is this. This is called a codex binding. So a binding that is not closed like you have on a regular book like this. And what it allows you to do is to open the book completely flat. So in pictures, when you have pictures like this here, so a spread page with 2 pages, the same illustration is on 2 pages, you can open the book flat and you can see very well the whole thing. This is different to a binding like this. For example, when you open it, you always have this part here that will kind of obscure part of the picture. And I actually stole this from Matthias Adolfsson because all of his books are made like this. So I was like, I want this. This is cool. The only minus of this solution is that sometimes when you look here, you can see a bit of pages that are underneath, kind of, because of how the paper is printed and folded. So that's one of the downsides of this method. But yeah. I also thought that because all of these pictures are painted by hand, there are no digital illustrations in this book. I would like to have paper that is more matte. So nothing that is too shiny. So it looks mostly like it actually looks in the sketchbook. So this is one of the actual sketchbooks that some of the illustrations from these sketchbooks are in the book. So if you look at it, it kind of looks almost like in the sketchbook. So this is how it looks in the sketchbook. And here are some illustrations from the book. So we tried to make it as similar to the actual sketchbook as possible. So we knew what we are kind of aiming for with this book. So the first thing that I got was this. This is a dummy book that you get from the publisher. Of course, this kind of differs from publisher to publisher. The publisher that I work with is very particular about paper and technical things. So paper, inks, the shape of the book, the binding, the cover, the thickness of the paper, the weight of the book, the size of the book, and so on. So they are really, really careful about the technical details of the book itself. So the first thing that I get in mail, in post, is actually this. So it's an empty book. It's the same size as the final book, is made of the same paper as the final book. It has the same weight and everything. It's just empty inside completely, which is very, very interesting thing to get. It's very exciting when this comes because you can actually kind of hold the book in your hand and kind of flip through it and see if it will work and do I like the size. And it's very nice to be able to hold the book before it's finished. So we get this, and I can actually print some covers and print some things on my printer at home and try to kind of put it into the book to see how it would work, and print a cover and kind of wrap it over the book and see if it works all right and so on, and test stuff. Then I got the color tests for the main cover. we wanted to go with this. This is called an obi in Japan. So this is like the wraparound thing. In some like Moleskine or some books like this, you get obi that's like here. But in my books, I often use the obi, which is usually like just like this. I like to make it big and put like all these kind of weird texts on the obi. So like the what's inside the book and who made it and the title and so on, and all the ISBNs and stuff go on the obi. And then if you don't want it, like my previous books and so on, and then if you don't want it, you can just like put it away, and you end up with this kind of interesting red book with just the title. So to figure out the color of this, we actually did a lot of these test prints. And we also chose some papers to go inside. So for the book, like for the cover, for this paper, we chose a lot of different papers. We tested like orange and yellow and blue and so on, and tried and kind of tested what would work best. So that's the thing that you can see on the left side. These are the sets, like the red cover and green paper and the orange cover and blue paper and so on. So I get these kind of samples in the post, and on the right side, we get the cover test prints on the paper that will be used for the cover and with the paint that will be used on the cover. So these are like special inks that are used, only two inks, like red and black for the letters. And this is printed on the machine that will do later the run for the book. So I was able to actually see how the final thing will look like. And we went with the more brighter one. So the next thing is, of course, I can just cut it out and test it on the dummy book that I got. So we can see how it looks like on the book. And the next thing is, of course, figuring out the whole contents. There is, of course, I had a designer who like put everything together for the book, like chose the fonts and so on. But because I already put a lot of time beforehand on editing all the files, I didn't have to spend like a month on editing all the files from scratch. So I just gathered all the PSD files, checked if they're all right, checked if they don't have like weird pixels somewhere or something, and I was ready to go. So because I always scanned and always edited my files when I finished a painting, I already had like 100 and whatever files that were ready to be published. So we just threw them into the design. We chose which files are going into the book. And then I knew, okay, I have to write the text for the book for some of the illustrations. But I didn't have to spend like a month to edit all of these, because I would just, I don't know if I would do it actually, because it would be like spending a month just staring at the screen and going after like stray pixels and trying to find if there are no like trash somewhere in the file. So I got this kind of print. I also get a PDF, but sometimes I get these prints in the post, so we can actually see how it looks in the size after it will be printed. And I go through this, correct some things, put comments in the PDF file, and then send it back to the publisher for the next version. And when the contents was more or less finished, I have my friend Josh Tierney, who is a comic writer, go through my English language stuff and correct it so it's nice and polished, brushed up. And when we put all the illustrations and all the text together, I got again this test print, which is the actual kind of layouts as they are in the book. And we also test printed the cover. So we did few versions of the cover with different like saturation and different like sharpness levels and so on, to test if the picture looks good. I did actually have to do some fixes on the picture because the electric pole on the left side was underneath the ISBN thing. So I actually had to go into Photoshop and move the pole to the left so it doesn't like go under the white field. So these are things that kind of appear when you do some test prints of the actual thing. And the last thing was this. So these are prints, not offset prints, but just laser prints from the book. And these are printed as the final sheets will be printed. So kind of spread them out. You have all the 4 sheets on the one piece of paper. So this is how actually the book will be printed in the printers. So I also get this and check through this, check the final files, if the letters and the text, and if there are no mistakes. Of course, the publisher also checks it, but because we are in Japan and the publisher can't actually speak English, I had to be really, really careful about checking all the English texts and see if there are no mistakes in the English text also. And in the end, I get this, which is the finished book. And I'm really happy with it, actually. We spend a lot of time trying to figure everything out. And I'm really, really happy how it turned out. And I'm also really happy that a lot of the pictures that I did throughout the 12 years that I spent in Japan, that I thought that, okay, I made it. This is a nice picture. It will probably end up only on Instagram and somewhere in my sketchbook. But maybe I'll actually use it somewhere, so I'll edit it and so on. I actually ended up making a book out of all of these pictures. So in the end, of course, I get this first book. This is my copy. And I want to give it to someone. And I actually start to sign it, and I sign it on the wrong side. So this is the one that I will not give to anyone because it's signed on the back. So yeah,
it's even more collector.
So it's the only one that's signed like backwards. So yeah, this is how the book looks like when it's finished. I did some photos of it to put on my website, and this is the codex binding, and this is more or less how the print quality actually looks like. And this is how it looks in the Japanese store. It is sold in just Japanese stores. You can buy it anywhere, mostly anywhere in Japan, just in bigger bookstores. It should be in most of them. And as are also my previous 2 books. So this is what I had to show during this presentation. Again, I would like to just kind of get back to one of the first slides that I had about my way of thinking about my work, which is this thing here. So I always try to stick with these 4 steps. So create, but then edit, so make things usable, and then gather them and back up them so you can always have access to them and they don't disappear just somewhere on your hard drive when your where your computer crashes or whatever. And then always have like a product in mind. So maybe I'll make a book of this, or maybe I'll make a print of this, or maybe I'll make a digital booklet out of this, and so on. So even if this is just a sketch, but if you really like it and you think that, yeah, this is a nice sketch, you can always use it later for a product of your own.